is going to be about the secret to winning college recommendation letters. So we've been getting this a lot, especially if you are possibly in the maybe list and you were requested to send additional information. One of those information could be a college recommendation letter. Also, if you are applying to private schools, then this is also probably really important because they typically require that upfront. If you're applying to some public schools, they might not request it upfront. They would only request it if you were put on that kind of maybe pile there where they'll ask you for additional essays and also the letter recs. So let's dig into it. What we're going to cover today is a little bit about why these recommendation letters matter. We're going to talk about how to ask for a recommendation letter and also what are the key elements to know that if the letter is strong. Also, we'll talk about the common mistakes and how to avoid them. And lastly, we'll end it with some Q&A. So, quick background for myself is that I used to be a former UC Berkeley admissions outreach coordinator and instructor where I taught classes on how to get into graduate school. I went to different high schools across California to teach about how to get into college. And so know that for myself, I was trained in the admissions office with Coach Tony, which is actually where we met. Secondly, fun fact is that I was a full ride scholar for UC Berkeley for undergrad and graduate school. If you missed it, last week I did this training, or was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, I did a training about how I got a full ride scholarship. So definitely check out the replay for that. And also by way of background in terms of my own training, I used to work in K-12 education policy, worked in ed tech, and also was an admission and now currently an admissions advisor. And quick housekeeping, if you don't mind, just share your high school graduation year in the chat just so I know who I'm talking to in this room. And throughout the entire time you're with me, you could just drop some questions in the Q&A box. Lastly, replay and notes will be available in 48 hours. And so you can always text our team to be able to get access to that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on, first off, why recommendation letters matter. So pop quiz though, first off, always doing this formal question. Any idea about are letters of recommendations always reviewed when submitted? Yes or no? Does anyone have any ideas on that? Do you think that they're always reviewed or are they not once you receive them? Any thoughts or ideas here from the group? We might have a little bit of a small group / quiet group here. Yes? Question mark? Any other thoughts or ideas? All right, so the answer to this is actually yes, okay? So remember that when it comes to college admissions, they do something called a comprehensive review process. In this comprehensive review process, what it means is that they have to review everything that is submitted, meaning that if you submit your activities, you submit your academics, whatever it is, they're going to review it. And that means that there's no like particular threshold or like cutoff for GPA, for example. That tends to be the kind of typical myth that people think that, oh, I need to be a certain GPA in order to get in. Well, that's not the case. In reality, they do look at everything so that in case there is something else aside from the academics that might matter. So same goes for letter recs. They'll always look at the letter recs if they are submitted. So remember that in terms of what the admissions officers are looking for, right? They're looking for particular key attributes that you might fit into or your student might fit into. And the goal, right, is that for yourself, you want to connect the dots for them. You want to make it easy and accessible and understandable that that you are the profile that they're looking for within their school. And this not only applies to just college admissions, but remember this might apply to scholarships, this might apply to summer programs, or anything else that might request an essay, a letter rec, or anything of that sort. So the goal is for you to understand what exactly are they looking for. And typically, we always know from the admission side, they want to understand your leadership experience. They want to understand that your academics, can you handle the college rigor? They want to understand, are you driven? Do you actually know what is it that you want to do later on in the future? And that can you actually explain and articulate why is it that you want to go down this path? So the goal is, right, for you to show that you are this well-rounded applicant who understands why you want to apply to college, what you want to major in, and how are you able to know that based off what you're currently doing. And that's showing the initiative. So the letter recs, right, are important in this because they complete that particular picture. In general, right, I always see like asking for letter recs is a good thing. Some students might react negatively when they see like, oh, I need to submit also letters of rec and another essay. That just means that they would need more information on you that they just didn't get enough on. So that is a sign that they are interested in you, but you just didn't do a good job enough to really connect the dots for them. So when you see the letter requirement or the recommendation there, that just means that you just needed to depict a part that maybe you weren't able to clearly articulate enough. So the way to think about it, right? If you know what they're looking for, and you submitted an application, but you were requested to send additional information, then the question becomes, why did they do that? Why did they ask me to submit another letter of recommendation? And it's possible that you're missing something, or they just need to validate whether the things that you were saying is something that is is actually true. And so, in terms of the letter of recommendations, they're really made to help externally validate whether do you have the right character, the work ethic, the leadership potential to really be able to be admitted to this university. So they're asking for this additional information because they didn't get this sense from you when they were reading your resume for the first time or your activities or your academic grades. So, for example, if you know for certain that your grades weren't the best, or you didn't have the best classes, or whatever the case, and you got requested to submit a letter rec. Well, in that case, then it's kind of probably an easy thing to guess or assume that you just didn't have enough academic rigor to really get through to the final yes right away. And in that case, right, the external validation is to be able to understand, do you have the academic rigor to successfully graduate from this university? It's not just about being able to get in, but can you actually graduate on time? It's possible that you have amazing academics and you just didn't have enough like activities in your application. And you should be able to know that based off of like what you submitted. If you were to like kind of review and think about what is it that like happened with your own application and what you sent over, you might be able to guess like, oh, I know that for sure that I didn't have any leadership experiences on my resume or my activities. And I kind of could have probably done a better job to articulate that. So for this letter recommendation, I'm going to focus on the validation that I do have leadership potential. So those are the things that you want to think about, right? You want to imagine you're in the admission seat and you're trying to evaluate your own application. If you were to be super critical about yourself or super critical about your student, what is it that you would say that is your weakest opportunity, your weakest area, or what is your biggest opportunity for growth? And that's what you want to double down on. You want to be able to cover the gaps that you think that you don't necessarily have in your what's already covered in your application, covered in your academics or your activities. Okay, second thing is the differentiation from other students. What's nice about the letter Rex, right, is that it's coming from a place where people, other adults are able to advocate on your behalf. And in this case, like not a lot of other students are going to get that same adult. So that being said, right, being able to differentiate yourself from other students, you might want to think about who are the particular adults in my life that I could be able to refer to that no other students can possibly be able to do. So, for example, like what if you were one of the few people that got a letter rec from your principal, from your superintendent, from your vice principal, or something of that sort? That will give you a competitive edge because no one else can be able to really get that same one. If you notice that there is other students that are like all the students are asking for a letter rec from the same person, usually we see this like from a one counselor or something of that sort. And that might not be the best person to get it from potentially, because even though they might be really good at writing it, it's possible that you're not going to be able to differentiate yourself because it's likely that if a counselor is writing for multiple people or adult is writing for multiple people, then in that case, it might sound generic. And that's something that we'll talk about in terms of the common mistakes that we typically see when people ask for a letter rec. And lastly, the important thing is the more control over narrative, meaning because it's more additional information, you're able to have more substance about you, meaning that letters recs are really great because they provide more context, more depth about you as an applicant. And so if you're to work with somebody that can help you develop that narrative, then that becomes even more powerful. Like for example, let's just say that you have a lot of leadership experiences, but you notice that you might be lacking a little bit more about the specific subject matter. So let's say you have a lot of leadership experiences, but you are lacking, you're applying to engineering and you don't have enough like engineering experiences or activities. Then like, can you ask your internship supervisor or an engineering teacher or like a engineering like supervisor, like someone that is like the supervisor of a club at the high school for engineering. that might be somebody that you can rely on to help you control your narrative and close that gap that I talked about. Because they can be able to speak directly to that specific thing that you want to improve on for your entirety of your application. So all of this, right? In a sense, your letters of rec is a way for you to be strategic. And so you don't want to just ask for any letter of rec. You want to be mindful and be very intentional about who you're requesting a letter of rec from. So but before we go into letter rec, though, there's a few things that we need to make sure that we do. Um, First off, diagnosing your gap. So this was what I was mentioning earlier, which is what is the gap that you're trying to cover? Is it that you're lacking academic rigor? Do you have low grades that you need to explain? Do you have some type of did you not take enough AP courses? Did you have like a missing area within your academics where like one semester you did very poorly? What is the gap that you think that you can be able to address in this particular part? The second part is the leadership, right? Is it that maybe you've been involved with your clubs generally, but you just don't have a very specific like leadership experience that you can talk to? So maybe the person that's writing your letter rec can talk about how you were able to play a pivotal or a huge contribution towards a community or a club or something of that sort? Or is it like the related field, as I was telling you about the engineering example, right? What if you don't have enough particular experiences within that field that you're applying to? And remember that for the admissions officers, for us, we wanted to understand like, if you're really interested in applying to this particular major, how do you know that, right? And also, if not only do you think that you want to study this, but do others also think that you're a good fit? Can someone actually speak to the matter of like the good fit that you are to this major? And maybe that could be a really great thing. Imagine if you were to get an internship and you were able to get an internship within, I don't know, the medical field. It would be really amazing for like a doctor or somebody of a medical field to say like, oh, I worked with this person very closely. I've seen their potential, and I think that they'll be a huge contribution to the medical field if they were given the opportunity to study more about it. That would be an amazing kind of connection or being strategic about like who it is that you can talk to. Secondly, timing matters, meaning that you you don't want to ask for someone for a letter rec like the weeks before it's due. Sometimes it might be a rush because if you're requested to send a letter of recommendation, sometimes they might give you like 2, 3 months turnaround time, which is very like short notice. And so in that way, right, you want to try to get it like as soon as possible. You want to ask as soon as you can. And also you want to prime them, right? Meaning that you don't want to just all of a sudden think about who to ask when it comes to you, but keep in mind to yourself, who are the individual people that you think that would be a good fit for you to letter a recommendation? And just keep that in mind for yourself, right? You don't have to ask them right away when you think about them, but just keep like a mental list of who are the right individuals, and then you could be able to reach out to them when the time comes. And if you know that you're applying to private schools, right, then you know that you would have to do it for the beginning of the application season. So try to prime it as early as the beginning of this year. Even right now is a good time. If you are a junior and you are currently going to apply this upcoming November, it might be a good idea to start asking people right now or asking teachers or your adults to see if they would be comfortable to do that. And we'll talk about how to request it in just a bit. But when you're choosing the right recommender, you want a few things to the criteria that they should fulfill. One, experience with you. They should be able to have deep relationship with you, and depth is like really important here. You don't want just somebody just because they have a great fancy title like a principal or a vice principal or something of that sort. You want someone who can really show that they have a good knowledge about you, about your experiences, about your background, and like what makes you like a strong candidate. You want to be able to have someone that can talk at the level of depth that nobody else can in the room. So like a kind of litmus test is if you were to think about all the teachers, all the adults in your school, who is that one person that would advocate for you or advocate for your child? And that person is probably the one that would be the best fit for you in this case, right? Because they are the one that has a true understanding of your potential. Second is writing capability. This is something that not a lot of people really realize or think about. And when I mean writing capability, I mean, have you seen their writing before? I know this is kind of hard to kind of understand. Like English teachers typically, like you know that they'll be okay to write. But like the ones that I would be very careful about is like, for example, sports coaches is one of them. Again, there's nothing wrong about sports coaches, and they're all great folks, especially. But the thing is, like, you haven't necessarily been able to see any like writing documents or things that come out of like their of them of their like effort. And so you can kind of usually see it with English teachers because they have to produce papers. I mean, they're teaching you how to write stuff, and they would probably know how to articulate these things. But like, if you were to ask like and it doesn't have to be a PE like coach or a teacher or whatever, but also take consideration of like the math teachers and the science teachers and so forth. Like, do they have you like even seen like how they write? Because this might be a very uncomfortable question to be because you don't want to just ask them like, hey, can you write well? But more so like, do you feel confident in their ability to articulate these ideas, right? Do you feel confident that they can be a strong advocate for you? So this doesn't even just have to be a writing, right? But can they speak to you in a way that feels very thoughtful and thought-provoking? Can they be able to articulate their ideas in a very concise and very compelling way? Those are things that you want to look out for when they speak about other things or other people. And in ways, right? Really, you're being able to try to understand can they be a strong advocate in writing? And lastly is relationship, right? This goes to show, I mean, this is kind of one of those no-brainer, obvious kind of things, but you want to make sure that you have a relationship with them and that you are nurturing the relationship throughout this whole entire time, that they are someone that you can trust. If you feel like someone can speak poorly about you, then don't choose them, of course, right? You want to feel like you can trust this person to be able to go back and forth with them, that you feel comfortable to let them know that, hey, this is something I want you to talk about. And do you feel comfortable about talking about that with about me? If you can have a two-way conversation with that person, then that's a good litmus test that that is probably a good relationship to have. But if it's like a one-way relationship where like you feel kind of uncomfortable or discomfort just trying to talk to this person, then that probably doesn't make sense to have that person to write the letter of recommendation. So just be very mindful in terms of like what does that relationship feel like to you, and do you trust them to be able to write good things about you? Because there has been instances where letter recs we might sometimes see like, oh, this person actually did not really recommend this person, or they just did a very poor job. So just be careful about who you're asking. All right. So let's go into the next part, which is the temperature check. Okay. So when you make a request, don't just clearly go up to them and be like, hey, can you write my letter of recommendation? Right. You want to get a temperature check. And what I mean by temperature check is you want to like test the waters. It's kind of like when you dip your foot in the pool and you want to see how cold or hot it is, right? You don't want to just plunge yourself in. And so the kind of way that you might want to frame it is, hey, like, would you feel comfortable writing me a strong letter of recommendation for my college applications? I really valued your class, and I believe that you can highlight XYZ in a way that could stand out to admissions officers. The way that this is like kind of framed here, right? It's asking if they would be comfortable, right? Because if you ask them like, will you write me a letter rec, you will either just get a yes or a no. And, you know, it's possible that that no, usually you might get more no's like right off the bat because they are not even sure if they can even write about you just yet. And you're asking for a level of comfort because you want to understand if they're not comfortable or they feel comfortable, but they need, you know, or but not entirely comfortable, then what is it that you need to give them or to support them in order to get to that level of comfort? Generally speaking, right, with the adults that I imagine that you're asking letters of rec from, they would support you. They want to support you. But do they actually feel comfortable to write about it, right? That's two different issues. Yes, they will be down to support you, but are they really feeling comfortable to write about it? And that's where we go into this part about creating a brag sheet, which is super important. A brag sheet is a pretty much a sheet where you can list down your accomplishments, your leadership roles, and your college or career goals. I forgot to put college there. But essentially with this brag sheet, it's a think of it as like a cheat sheet for your recommender to write about you because you want to have them highlight certain things about you. And again, this goes back to the whole idea of about being able to manage your narrative or control your narrative. If you create a brag sheet that has very specific points about what your gap is and what you want them to be able to talk about, then that's great. That gives them more information to be intentional about what is it that they should be focusing on. So again, the more information that you give them, the more successful that they will be to be able to write about you. And so don't forget to create this brag sheet or give it to them. And they're not going to ask for it, okay? Like if you were to even ask them like, hey, would it be helpful if I gave you this? They'll be like, oh, yeah, it's fine, not a big deal, whatever. Don't fall into that trap, okay? Because if you just let them write about anything that they think, then how are you going to know what are they going to actually write about? And will they write about the things that are part of that gap that we told you about, right? Remember that there's attributes that they're looking for. Are you able to speak to all these attributes? And is this person that is writing for you, are they like reinforcing that particular attribute? So creating a brag sheet is going to be a super important step. So going to an example letter, okay? This is, I'll read this out loud and then we can, oh, I think I skipped this slide. Oh, no, this one's the slide. Okay, let's read this example letter here, which is to whom it may concern. I am pleased to recommend John Smith for admissions to your college. John was a student in my English class, and he did well in his coursework. He was always on time, turned his assignments, and got good grades. He was a quiet student, but respectful and responsible. John is a hard worker, and I believe he will do well in college. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Sincerely, Mr. Johnson. All right. Would love to hear from the group now that our group got a bit bigger. What are folks' reactions to this particular letter? Any ideas here? Any ideas about how folks might react to this? Completely average. I love I love that. Very generic. Okay. Nice. Okay. So far, yes, completely average, very generic, very basic, no details. All right. And I see some folks writing in the chat for the hosted panelists, but it'd be good for everyone else to see as well. So yes, everything what everyone said is right. Not so detailed, not no examples. Yes, exactly. So let me go into the like what we see here is like, yes, the one is that's too generic. There's no specific details about John's skills or personalities. There's a lack of enthusiasm here. It just feels like it's kind of forced, right? Pleased to recommend is lukewarm at best. No personal connection. It feels like a template, right? It's not like there's a real example here about like how did they actually talk to John. And also, it doesn't really showcase the impact either, right? They're just kind of speaking generically about how he made a difference, but not really anything specific here. So let's read another letter here. Actually, not before going to the letter. Let's assume that you gave a brag sheet, right, to the to your letter recommender. So this is what you might provide them, right? You talk about how you contributed to the course. You talked about how you were a top performer. You developed an independent research paper about social justice movements. You conducted interviews about with local activists, and also your work was selected in the publication for schools literacy. And also you demonstrate that you participate a lot. Some other things that you might let them know, like, hey, and this is a good reminder that teachers don't always know what you're involved in. You can't assume that they actually understand what you want to study, what you want to do in your career, or what you want, yeah, or what you're involved in at school. And so you might want to remind them, like, hey, by the way, I'm also involved in many different things. I'm the editor-in-chief in the school newspaper. This is my impact. I also was part of a speech and debate team member. I actually won a tournament. And also, I was a creative writing club president, which I've helped many different students. Some other information I might tell them is like, hey, here's my personal strengths and work ethic that I think I have as a critical thinker, strong communicator, and so forth. And also, I'm very passionate about like storytelling, journalism, media advocacy. And my future goals is to go and study journalism or English and potentially maybe go down a career of being a journalist or an editor. And also what's nice here as well, which I think is like extremely important, is why did I choose you for this letter, right? And a part of a brag sheet also is to be like bragging also about the teacher that you decided to choose as well, right? You wanted to show like, hey, I feel like I have a deep relationship with you. I feel like I really care about you. And this is the reason why I feel like we have a strong relationship. It's because your class really helped me change or challenge me deeply about how storytelling and its impact. You really encouraged me to push beyond the basics in research and writing, and also you see my growth firsthand, and you can speak to my work ethic and leadership. You're pretty much not just bragging yourself, you're bragging them. You're bragging like why they are like your most trusted adult. And it is a privilege and an honor to be able to to be asked to write my letter rec. And when you make it personal, when you make this information feel like you're the only person who I can ask at the school, they have such a larger like kind of determination to do even better for you. So don't just go out and just like ask anybody, but make the person that you're asking feel like they're the only person that can write about this. By doing that, you can really develop a more in-depth kind of engagement throughout this entire time. So here's a new letter, okay? Imagine that you got that brag sheet and we were able to rewrite the letter. It is my pleasure to strongly recommend John Smith for the admission to your university. As his English teacher for 2 years, I've had the privilege of watching John grow into an exceptional student and leader, both in and outside of the classroom. What makes John stand out is his ability to think critically and creatively. During our class independent research project, John chose to explore the impact of storytelling on social justice movements. Not only did he write compelling analysis, but he also took the initiative to interview local activists, weaving their insights into his paper in a way that demonstrated maturity beyond his years. His work was later selected for publication in our school's literary journal, a rare honor reserved for the top 2% of students. Beyond academics, John is a natural leader. As the editor of our school newspaper, he revitalized the publication by introducing a digital edition, increasing readership by 40%. His ability to collaborate with peer and mentor young writers speaks to his strong communication skills and dedication to excellence. John is a kind student who not only excels individually, but also elevates those around him. His intellectual curiosity, resilience, and leadership will make him an asset to your university. I give him my highest recommendation without hesitation. Please feel free to contact me if you require any further information. Okay? All right. Thoughts, reactions. What do you folks think about this particular letter here? What are some noticings? Do folks like this more? Is it better than the first one? Numbers and metrics, yes. Wow, lots of great examples. Okay. Okay, very specific. Yep, definitely the case there. All right. Yep, that's definitely all the great things there. So, definitely, this is definitely a stronger case here. And the things that we kind of observed was it shows enthusiasm, right? My pleasure to strongly recommend. It shows that this person is like much more engaged. Provide specific examples of the research project, activism, leadership role in the newspaper. Highlights personal qualities as well. It's not just about the accomplishments that they were able to produce. They also demonstrated like the characteristics of that person and connects to show the impact. There is much more to it than just grades, right? The whole point of college admissions isn't just about academics. Remember, the whole point of understanding the fit to a university is not that you are the best student ever, but it's the fact that you will contribute towards the culture of the university. So again, when you're thinking about the person that can write your letter, a rec, it's about thinking about that person who can speak to that character, that can speak to how you could be a cultural fit for that university. And felt it was sincere and dusty. Yeah, that was definitely the case there. Great, great comments, everyone. And so, what makes a letter powerful? Okay. Uh, so one is that there should be a lot of more specific examples, not just like, hey, this person's a great student, but he led a project that improved our school's recycling program by 50%. Okay. And of course, actually define what the 50% means. But again, you're not writing the letter recommendation, right? You're just trying to be able to understand who can speak to these specifics. Okay. If you don't think your adults or the people in your school can speak to the specifics, then you got to give it to them. You got to spoon feed them on the brag sheet. What exactly can they highlight? Second thing, a personal touch. Admission officers want to see real insights into your personality. So it's not just a matter of like you're a robot, you can get all A's, you're doing a whole bunch of activities, but being able to see like who are you more than just a number, right? What is the kind of impact, the insights that someone can say about you? And lastly, alignment with your application. Your letter should reinforce your strengths and not just repeat your resume. So remember, going back to the very first slides about do they actually read your letter recs? Yes, they always read it. And the thing is, it's a comprehensive review, meaning that if they read your letter rec, they're reading the whole entire application. So for those who don't know, if you are requested to send a letter of recommendation again, you're going to be they're going to be reviewing everything with it again. So you don't want to restate anything that's new. You want to say new information. So that being said, you want to make sure that your letter of recommendation isn't just like repeating everything, right? That you've already listed, but to be able to share a new light about you. Because again, they're asking for a letter rec because you didn't share enough information about a particular thing. So to guide your letter recommender, right? You obviously can't reach out, you can't write your own letter. Some might say like, oh, just write a letter rec and then I'll sign off on it. That's technically unethical there. I don't think that's really the right thing to do. But some people might say that, like, hey, I'll just sign off whatever letter rec that you want me to do. Uh, some adults might say that, they might do that. And so that's up to you if you want to follow that along. But generally speaking, you're not going to be the one to write it. Second, you want to make sure that you frame it to them about what exactly are the college is looking for in terms of characteristics, but also what's the gap that you're trying to close for them. So if you already know that colleges are looking for leadership, intellectual curiosity, resilience, teamwork, and all these other things, what do you want them to be able to talk about specifically? So, for example, if you're applying for an engineering program, a math teacher should talk about your problem solving skills, not just your test scores. It's not about like someone boasting about how you got A's in their class because they already see that from your transcript. They want to see about how did you get to those A's, okay? What are the characteristics of qualities that helped you get that high score? So remember that don't emphasize on just the particular outcome that you've already displayed in your activities or in your grades, but display the kind of character and processes that you've conducted yourself or that you demonstrated that is a good fit towards the university. So quick common sticks here, right? In terms of what we typically see as an issue for a lot of these letter recommendations is one, the biggest one is the lack of guidance to recommender. So many students don't give enough information to the adults in the room. And I know firsthand, like when I get asked to be a letter recommender, it's like one of those things of like I only know so much about you. We've only talked about like 6 times maybe, or like we only had like so many communications with each other, and you want me to write this really big letter of recommendation? Like I don't think I even feel that confident to write about you, right? And it's one of those things where if you were to give me more things to write about, then that would be super much easier. And I've also been asked to like be a what's it called? Like one of those referral. Like sometimes people would ask me to like be a referral for them when they apply to a job and they want me to speak on their character. Well, the thing is, I don't know what job they're applying to. I don't know what particular like things they're trying to talk about for themselves or what they want me to highlight. And I have no clue like what like how should I be responding? What is it that like if I want to support you, but I don't know what to say. So again, give the recommenders something to work off of. Second is choosing the wrong person. Okay. When it comes to choosing the wrong person, usually the typical mistakes is that you're choosing someone who can't really articulate well about you, either because they don't have a strong foundation for writing and or also they just don't feel that connected to you. And that can sometimes be an issue. You want to make sure that someone is taking this seriously. And so maybe another good litmus test, right, is do they understand how important it is for you to get into college, right? So that is something that you should have conversations with them on a regular basis to make sure that they are truly on the same page as you. And that goes in the last part about not fostering relationship with adults. too many high school students go through high school without even really trying to communicate or like get to know the other teachers or adults on the campus. And that can backfire on you, especially once you get to junior year or senior year. And next, you know, you realize that you need a letter of recommendation and you don't even have anyone to rely on. So get to know the adults in the building, get to know the adults that can potentially support you in the long-term future because you want everyone on your side. And so the kinds of people that you might want to think about, who are the teachers, who are the counselors, who are the principals or assistant principals that you could talk to on your campus. And don't just think about on campus, think of off campus too. If you're working a part-time job, if you're working for an internship, if you're working for a nonprofit, there's a lot of other people that can speak to you. Uh, I get this question sometimes, like, can parents or uncles and aunts like be the ones to write it? I don't really recommend it, but I mean, you could. But again, like you want to see if there's someone that can speak to you, speak about you on an unbiased like, kind of perspective, right? So it'd be kind of awkward to all of a sudden get a letter recommendation from your mom or dad. You know, it's kind of like one of those things like, of course, they're going to speak about all these highly good things. Have someone that you actually worked with professionally or academically. All right. So next, we're going to go into the resources and next steps. I hope that was helpful for everyone. And after I do the resources and next steps, then we can go into Q&A. So first off, if you want the notes in the replay, right, and folks feel like this was helpful, text notes and replay to 949-775-0865. And this notes and replays will be available in 48 hours. So please be patient as we upload it onto our website so that way people can be able to access it. Second thing is we do have a freebie of a brag sheet resource. So the brag sheet is what can help you not only just give this to the letter recommenders, but this is also good for your activities list as well. So if you're a freshman or sophomore or and you're prepping your application, or even a junior when you're about to start writing your application now, take advantage of this brag sheet to start documenting everything that you've done because that way, by the time you start writing the application, it's going to be so easy for you to be able to just plug and play everything that you've done. So use this brag sheet, use it as a way to be able to share it with your letter recommenders, and also use it for your own completion of your application. Second thing, juniors, 2026 juniors right now. We are starting our college app intensive very soon in April, which is next month. So if you haven't already, first off, if you're in our family programs or our coaching programs, be sure to message us in Discord if you haven't reserved a spot, and we will be able to get you like RSVP. If you are not a part of our coaching family, then check out collegeappintensive.com or text intensive for more information about this. This is where students can come in, learn about how to write a strong personal statement or personal insight questions at the very beginning. So that way they're not lost throughout the summer. And then by the end of the summer, we're going to have Accelerator, which is where you can join us in person or virtually, where you'll have your completed final drafts by then. So definitely come through and be able to take advantage of this resource because you shouldn't be working on your applications and in 12th grade when you're starting school. You want to get this done during the summertime. Also, if you are new to our webinars and this is your first time attending, welcome. And so we always offer free 15-minute assessment coaching calls for every single family that is new to the community. This is totally free. Nothing's for sale. You can't even buy anything on the call if you really wanted to. And the goal is just to be able to figure out where exactly are you in your journey and also to provide you recommendations on what you can do to raise your chances to get into the colleges of your dreams. So definitely take advantage of that. And also, we have our newsletter. If you haven't registered for it just yet, go to collegeadmissionssecrets.co or text news to the same number, right? And this is where we share weekly information about something, useful resources, maybe scholarships, maybe opportunities. Like one, we talked about the must-do steps for college success this spring. We talked about what helped a family get into USC and Northeastern or summer programs. Like definitely take advantage of this. This will be in your inbox. And plus, what's great about email inboxes, it'll just stay in there. So you can be able to just refer to it when you need to. So again, this is a recap of the things that you can text for the free resources. So definitely take advantage of that. All right. Okay, now let's go into the Q&A. I see a lot that has built up. Okay, questions. Most colleges want two core academic letters. My child's best leadership is in band, and if they ask for two academic letters, is it okay to send two core letters plus the band recommendation? Uh, I would say it's if they're saying academic letters, then that means that they want to understand, will the student be able to handle the amount of college rigor at our university? So that being said, uh, unless your child is actually studying for music in some way, then I might try to look at the other classes that actually relate more to the particular field they're interested in studying. So if they're more of like a STEM field, then I would go more into the STEM area. Of course, no letter rec is better than a letter than having a letter rec is better than no letter rec. And also, if this person is like really the best person to be able to to request from, then it doesn't hurt to still have it. So it's a little bit of a nuanced answer. Ideally, I would say like try to go into like whatever the fields that they are studying in if they are requesting for academic letters. Okay. Don't letters of rec have to come from core subject teachers, i.e., not elected teachers, not robotics coach who isn't a teacher? No, it doesn't actually quite matter who it is. Again, it's about what are they asking for? What are they like trying to learn more about is the subject or the substance. So it doesn't necessarily need to always come from one particular core subject or teacher. Even with the last question, right? I'm only saying that it's about the content that they're able to produce. If they can speak to the academic rigor or like what they've learned and how well they did in those courses, then those are the things that we would want them to uh, who to rely on. Next question, if we want to major in computer science or engineering and need a letter recommendation in a related class, there's a limited choices of teachers since really need to be junior year teacher. So what is more important, teacher that can write well or subject being physics or math? If we want, okay, there's a limited number of teachers. What matters more, teachers that can write well or subject being physics or math? I mean, it's kind of like one of those things like you kind of ideally want both in a way where like you want them to be the ones that speak to the subject that you are going to study in the future and also that could write well. So in ways that's where the trade-off is, right? At the end of the day, it's whoever that could speak the best about you. So I would prioritize the teacher who can write better rather than just the physics or math teacher because they think of this way is that if you think that your physics or math teacher can't write too well about you or can't go in depth, then that letter rec might just be useless, right? Because it doesn't add any substance. Just because you get a letter rec that is from a physics teacher doesn't mean that it's better. It's only good based off the content that they're able to speak about you. So again, like really focus on who can go in depth with you is the most important thing. Okay, some other questions here. Should letters of recommendation be written differently for summer programs versus college applications? Would you highlight different information on the brag sheet or is it essentially the same? It depends on the prompt, right? Usually for summer programs, they're asking for something very specific. So try to understand what the requirements are. Remember that one slide I was sharing? There's certain attributes they're looking for. So just make sure that there are those particular attributes are understood and heard, and then make sure that the letter of rec speak to those particular attributes that the summer program might be looking for. Typically, the brag sheet is majority probably the same anyways. There probably isn't going to be a major difference in the brag sheet itself unless you are trying to be very specific in what is it that you want to communicate. Okay. Next question, is a brag sheet the same as a resume? Yes and no, right? A resume is like, here are certain experiences, and here is like what I did during those professional or volunteer experiences. The brag sheet also might talk about what is it that you want me to talk about. Why is it that I'm choosing you as a using you as a reader or sorry, as a letter recommender, or it might even talk about the specific characteristics that I have. So the characteristics is the other addition that is different from what is typical from a resume. Should juniors begin requesting letters in spring, then follow up with the brag sheet in senior year fall? Yes, they should. You want to get a good temperature check early on. You don't want to be ending up like starting the new school year in senior year, and then you ask for the letter rec, and the next you know, you're like, oh no, like I gotta find and rush to have somebody. And the goal isn't to ask them to write a letter rec right away, but it's to get a temperature check about, hey, I'm probably gonna be writing needing a letter recommendation in like half a year. Just kind of curious, like, do you think you'd feel comfortable to write about that? All right. And in terms of we have a family here asking to register their child as we are part of the program. Please message us on Discord. Again, this is a webinar, so I can't really like be able to follow up on that. So if you are part of our program, message us in your Discord channel if you need to register for the college app intensive. Okay. All right. Any other final questions from this group? Going once, going twice. All right. So thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. I hope you all found it useful and looking forward to seeing y'all next week. All right. Take care and have a great night.